What I'm going to talk about is a bit about my journey and what I have learned in my over 25 years of experience in health and safety. I'll never have more than 25 years of experience because I'll never be older than 39, just saying. Right? But when I started out in health and safety, communicating with individuals, whether it was around a senior leadership table or whether it was in the trenches with them working side by side, at times it was painful. Because I would see safety one way, they would see safety another way. I would say, this is the way we should do it. And they would be like, no, we've done it this way for 25 years. And I realized that I really needed to influence and persuade people at all levels of the organization. Right from the floor level worker, right up to the CEO that's there. And then as I started to work around the world, I've worked in 21 different countries doing health and safety. I realized that how we influence people, there's some basic similarities. There's some things that we need to acknowledge differently when people are from different cultures, and I'll speak to that in a moment throughout the presentation. But there's some basic commonalities that if we message map a certain way, or if we use some concepts in how we communicate, we can definitely get our point across a little bit better. We can influence people a little bit more. And I'm only going to talk about a couple pieces of that puzzle, how we can influence and persuade people more easily. My youngest son says, how do you manipulate people? That's actually what he called it. But I was like, influence and persuade would probably be better. Because there's so many different tools and resources that are out there in different ways. I'm just going to share a couple of them with you today after I share my most favorite safety video. Because I always have to show this video, yeah. It is the mouse safety dance. I actually like it so much is I know all the dance steps and I don't even have to watch it anymore. Because here you have a mouse who has a job to do, a task at hand. Get the cheese.
I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy baby.
Anyways, Missy Mouse, the supervisor, sends the worker out of the hole to do the job, get the cheese, knowing he's a competent mouse. How do you know he's competent? Look at that belly, he's done the job before, that confidence on approach. Little gray behind the ears, he's experienced. Look at how he surveys the land, identifying the hazards, assessing the risk, and making sure the right controls in place. Look, he's even wearing his PPE. I said PPE, not PP. I know he has no pants. I'm talking boots, gloves, right? He knows how to do the job and how to do it safe. He's even taken the back injury prevention course, you know, the one they had out in the warehouse not too long ago. Look at how he gets down and close to the load before lifting. He does the job, he does it safe. Oh, or does he? I don't know if you can tell, I love that video. To me, it says so much about safety, and it does say a lot about how we need to influence people, right? Because how can the mouse protect himself if he does not know that the farmer's wife exists, right? If the farmer's wife's the one with the broom and going to wipe him off the map, he has to know that that's the hazard. So part of our job as people who are safety champions is to communicate effectively so people understand what can hurt them, what's going to be the risk, what's the right control, and that they actually pay attention to it. Because sometimes when we're talking to maybe people who are new in the workplace or younger, they don't understand the hazards that are there. Maybe you're talking to someone who's been there for 26 years and done the job that way all that time. Has it been because he's lucky or safe? There's that complacency or apathy to a hazard, and how we talk to him is whether he notices it again or not. What else does this video say about influence and persuasion and communication? When the mouse has got his blinders on, his head's down, his butt's up, he's working hard. He knows all the hazards and risks associated with getting the cheese from the trap. But if we have just our blinders on and we only see what's happening right in front of us, isn't it sometimes other people, other equipment, other processes? So how we communicate to people, how we talk to them, how we influence them will tell us how insular or micro they might look at health and safety, or whether we can help them get their blinders back and they can see more aspects. When it comes to senior leadership, that may be very much the taking a look at the whole vision and how all the processes interplay, or it might be when it comes to a worker just to be more situationally aware or mindful of the work and the hazards and the risks that are surrounding them. So I guess as a safety person, I looked at how do we get people to do the safety things that we need them to do. I've struggled with that, and I started to research it and read and watch YouTube videos, and I started to realize that individual definitions, group definitions, and organizational definitions help people choose either a safe choice or a learning opportunity. Maybe something that's not so safe, but hopefully a learning opportunity that's there. Right? And so us as safety champions, those of us who believe in health and safety and we can see what the hazards and risks are, maybe the pathway that's best taken, how we talk to people, how we message map can have a huge effect on the end goal that's there. And I have at times felt like with safety, I'm pushing a rock uphill. Have you ever felt that, right? And sometimes you're almost at the top and you're like, oh, if I could just convince one more person or just a little bit more, I can tip it over. I wish we could just hypnotize people or maybe put in mind chips, then they'll do the safety things that they would need to do, but I've been told that's illegal. And I have to say, even to today, I get frustrated at times with certain groups as I'm talking to them to try to persuade them, and I have probably even wished some of them harm. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying, oh my gosh, there's that one person you would just like to, right? Because they're just that person. It doesn't matter what you say or how you say it. They're just like, nope, don't want to do that. And I have resorted to maybe these kinds of activities. And then at the end of the day, we don't get any farther with safety. I just feel bad. They feel like they've been, and really what we want to be doing is helping coach and get people going in the right directions, right, versus not the right direction. So how do we get to this target of 0? How do we get, by getting people to pay attention, to understand what we're saying, to believe in it, to act on it? All right. We can use our superpowers of influence. I'm going to be sharing a couple books with you as we go through, kind of the Coles Notes version. One that's like really kind of reasonable. I just picked this up the other day, read it in about 15 minutes, actually. Emotional Intelligence, Influence, and Persuasion, Harvard Business Review. It probably does a summary of the top 5 authors in influence and persuasion around the globe. Amazing book. Brianna, it's yours. Right? Power of Influence. So it's a great book to read. The other one that I'm going to talk a lot about is Robert Cialdini, and it's The Power of Influence and Persuasion. They don't speak to safety specifically, they just speak to human behavior and what makes or influences us and helps us make choices. So if we're aware of that, we can start to plan how we want to talk to people so that we can get their attention, get them to listen and understand, and then to call them to action. So I truly believe you need to know people's definitions so that you can talk their language and find out what motivates them. Because if you think that everyone in the room has the same definition of safety, you're wrong. If you think that you can talk to them because everyone's at the same place, you're wrong. But how many of us as safety champions, again, have that 1-year safety, woohoo, get everybody in the room, or we're going to launch a new initiative, we get everybody in the room and we launch it at the same way, at the same time, for every division or group in our organization, and we don't take into consideration differing definitions or where people are in different places and how they're ready to accept that topic. So you need to know people's definitions. So this is an example. HSBC used to have these all around in airports, that some people would take a look at a bald head and say it's style. Actually, when I think of that, I think of my oldest son. He actually has just shaved his head. He was kind of going a little bit of, anyway, he decided it was style. He was tired of the jokes. You know those jokes, right? If you're bald up top, that you're a lover, and if you're bald at the front, you're a thinker, and if you're bald all the way through, you think you're a lover. Yeah, so he said it's going to be a style choice. All right, so it could be that. It could be a soldier. I actually had the fortune to work at the Pentagon last fall for a week. Can't post that on LinkedIn or anything. They don't let you do that, but it was amazing. 28,000 people there on a daily basis. A lot of them like that. So I might look at a shaved head and go, oh, it's a soldier. Or I may take a look at it and say a survivor. It all depends where I'm situated or my experiences, right? My husband right now has terminal cancer. He's gone through chemo and radiation treatments and everything else. And so I looked at a bald head. Probably the first thing I look at is, are they a survivor? Then I go to, is it style? Oh, maybe they're a soldier, right? So, but yet you might look at it and just go, oh, that looks like me, right? Or hey, that looks like. So you need to know people's definitions on the topics around hazards and risks and safety. And what affects our definitions are our cultural beliefs, our religious upbringing, what we've been exposed to or not exposed to, our experiences, our history, what we value in life. All of those things that have shaped us as we grew up, the conversations that happen around our family table, tell us how we see the world. And it'll tell us how we see safety. Whether we say 48 is too many or not, or whether even that conversation is happening around our tables. So let's just start with a couple of fun definitions, just to kind of play the game a bit. Family, when you think of family, what do you think of? Anybody? Home, excellent. Anybody, anything else? Children. Did I hear expensive? No. Oh, parents, oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes expensive too. I yelled this out at a conference the other day, and a guy yelled up my livestock, and I was like, what? Anyway, so again, dogs, cats. Isn't it funny how your definition of family might be different than the person sitting next to you or at the table next to you? For me, I'm an only child of an only child, spoiled, rotten, loving every minute of it. Explains a whole lot about who I am. 2 kids, picture cute, young, fluffy. Thought it was pretty cool way back then. I have a significant other. I have 2 sisters of the soul. We are godparents to each other's children. We go on family vacations together. And I have a dog, not so much anymore, but this was Duke. He's my beagle. He does have legs. This was a trick. Right? Now you may look at this and say, my definition of family is exactly the same. Or it might be totally different because you're a family of 14. But if we started to talk about family, isn't there that picture that you have in your head? It's no different than when I say safety. Somebody has a picture in their head. We have a chance to influence that picture, to make sure that it's in the right book, or at least on the right page of the book that's there. And our definitions can change. My definition changed over time, because I all of a sudden got these wonderful daughter-in-laws, and then I started having these things. Should have had them first, actually. They are the best, right? So all of a sudden, my family definition started to change. So our definitions aren't static. They can change. That means I can influence the one cat who's turned in the corner saying nope. I just got to find out his definition. And maybe it starts with his definition of family. How many people here know of someone who was killed in a workplace? Does anyone here know of someone who's suffered a permanent disability and how it's affected their life? Is there anyone here who's never had any of that in their life? No deaths, no disabilities, no. Right? Isn't that important to know in your workplace? Because if I'm trying to talk and convince people about health and safety and how bad it could be, if no one's ever suffered, if they've only all been the golden child, never been hurt, they do extreme sports, everything turns out great, they got money in their bank account, they got a good-looking girlfriend, great car, nothing's ever been bad, how hard is it to get them to see that there might be something that goes wrong in life? You need to know their definitions so you know how to talk to them. Right? When you think of a good time, what do you think of? Another definition. Anybody? Party. Safety for 2 days. Yeah. Comp Institute. Yeah. Depending on who you are, where you are in life, your definition of a good time might be different than other people. Right? It could be being outside and hiking or snowmobiling, which we probably will do again after tomorrow. I heard the weather is supposed to snow, just saying. Right? It might be relaxing or a warm holiday or maybe some of this after a couple of those. Right? So we have these definitions on family, on good times. They may be the same or different than the person sitting next to us. They might be the same or different than a senior leader to a manager to a worker. So it doesn't matter if the definition is on family or good time or if it's about safety or what's safe or what's hazardous. We need to know people's definitions. So when people think of safety, what do you think they think of? What do you think of? What's the first thing that pops into your mind? You don't want people to get hurt. A lot of us in this room are all about moms and dads, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives coming home at the end of the day. That's why we do what we do. That's excellent. But if you went out onto the shop floor and asked, why do you think we do safety, or why does the company do safety? Is that the answer you'll get? Or what might be another answer that you receive? Have to. We have to. It's a CYA activity because, right, if OH&S comes in, we might get fined or in trouble, or it's a cost of doing business. I talked to the CFO. He's all about making sure that we've got a good bottom line. There's no right or wrong definition, and I really, at the end of the day, don't care what motivates people to do health and safety, as long as at the end of the day, they do health and safety. Right? But you need to find out what, and a lot of people, if they concentrate on technical aspects or the cost benefit of safety or the legal liabilities of safety, it doesn't mean that they want to hurt people. It just might mean what they're more focused on at that time. Doesn't mean that it's wrong, it's just a little bit different. So knowing that, switch it up. In my early safety career, I would talk about mums and dads, sons and daughters, to a guy who was talking about the financial bottom line, and we would argue for hours. I switched the conversation up to the financial aspects, used the BC cost calculator online, workers' compensation, great little cost calculator, put in how many days they work without profit because of these accidents they had. If they give this to me, I can make sure it doesn't happen again. All of a sudden, we're not arguing anymore. Just because of how I switched, how I talked about a topic. So we want people to see safe versus unsafe, right? When you look at this, would you say this is correct? Correct? Cool. This would be incorrect, right? So then why can I go into a workplace and see this? So their definition, somewhere along the line, said that this was safe. How we talk to them about it will help them convince them or show them that it's not safe. So how can I message map and get there with that? Well, we need to challenge people's definitions. When we see something, maybe don't go at it like a dog on a bone, right? Safety, safety, safety. Step back, ask the questions. If you look at this situation, I just took this picture of you. Can you come on down? I just need to talk to you for a moment. Let's take a look at this. How could you get hurt doing this? Get their blinders back. Because sometimes if we just go, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. That's against the law. It's against company policy. What happens when a police officer stops you on a traffic stop and says you were speeding and it's against the law? What do you say? If I throw a donut, will you fetch? Right? Okay, because that's the stuff that you're starting to go through in your mind, right? Isn't there a real crime to solve? I'm 2 kilometers over the speed limit. Come on. Because I'm a professional driver, the road's good, I got new tires. So don't you think that that's what most people in our workplace say when we say that's against policy or it's against the law? I've been doing it this way for 20 years, Eldine, still have most of my fingers. Right? So you need to get them to talk about why it's a hazard, why it's a risk, and get them to have their blinders back so you can show them pictures of their workplace, of other workplaces, and say, why would this be wrong? How could you possibly get hurt doing this task? And then you can show them some of the correct things. What if we did it this way? How would it affect your work? Oh, it'll take me more time. Tell me how it would take more time. Start to understand their definitions. And then hopefully you can even get it so that it's not just work conversation about the hazard or the risk, but it's also home conversation, because safety is not just about work, it's about home as well. Right? So we want to get people to understand and to realize what the hazards are in the work environment, and are they controlled properly? Because we know that incidents can be caused by substandard work conditions. That means hazards not controlled, or hazards controlled not to the best. Right? This would be an example. Faulty equipment. This hammer keeps hitting 2 inches to the left. Faulty equipment causing injury. So we have to make sure that people can recognize what the hazards are, and that they can also recognize how substandard practices or the choices that they make can affect health and safety. Like this, we can skip the safety rules just this once. Don't worry, walking through flames with flammables. So we have to start challenging their definitions around hazards and how they practice their work. Because what I see is a lot of companies in this dilemma. You know, we've done really well. We've instituted a variety of health and safety programs. You see them, right? They got the Focus Zero, Mission Zero even on their cars. And they go some days 0, 0, 0, and then blip, 0, 0, 0, blip, 0, 0, holy, 0, 0, flip. And they don't know how to kind of get to that next level. Well, how we talk, how we can get them on those definitions can definitely make a difference. So how do I know their definitions? Use our superpowers. Use our X-ray vision in observation. Watch people, see how they do their work. Super hearing, listen to how they talk about health and safety. Ask questions. Most people want to talk more than they want to listen. So if you ask some questions about how they do their job, what they see safety is, what they do in their spare time, all of a sudden it starts to open up to how you may be able to make a connection to the health and safety world. Use your X-ray vision of that observation by spending time with individuals and groups, by looking for leading indicators for health and safety and helping enforce them. I was just with a company down in Oregon, Roseburg Forestry Products, and we had a great safety day because they are on an exciting journey. And we brought together all their supervisors into a room, and each one of them got to share. We started a book club, actually, and we're doing some of these kinds of books, and then they read them, and then we look at how they can apply them. And one of the guys talked about persuasion and X-ray vision, and he said what he has found is by spending a little bit of time with each person in his area, he now knows the biggest, roughest, toughest guy has a Chihuahua named Rosie. And when he talks about health and safety and that connection, he says they often start out with a conversation about Rosie. And now this guy, he has this guy in the palm of his hand. Right? So if we observe and spend time and build relationships, we start to get connections, people will listen to us more. If we super hear, we listen, then we can start to see what their definitions are and know how to talk to them. Right? So when our people think of safe versus safe, we want to get them all on the same channel. We need to help them bring their blinders back, and so that they can take a look at definitions. This is another HSBC one. Some people think camping's a holiday, others think it's hell. Some people think that a cruise is hell and others are holiday. In my household, I love both of these. I'll do both. My husband, on the other hand, doesn't like either one of them. So what do our holidays look like? But I've started to chip away at him. I know he'll never go camping. Again, he's got cancer, doesn't like roughing it, was in the Army for many years. Probably not gonna happen that way. But the cruise, so he says, I don't like people, right? Okay, well, and he's like, that's all there is on this big boat is people. And I said, well, there's places on the boat you can hide, right? There's some little things. So I started to show him where little things were on cruises. And then he came across one that I kind of planted, skeet shooting. I can shoot a gun on the boat. Whoa, that's a good idea. You like shooting. Oh, that's great. And I'm like, oh, look at these foods. Oh, that's my favorite. So we started off with like a 2-day cruise, you know, like just one of those out of the harbor and back in. And he's like, this was good. We did a weekend cruise. He's like, they feed you all the time. Now he's planning one of these ones that, you know, it's all the drinks included and everything else. All of a sudden, by how I started to influence and plant seeds, and I listened to what he said he liked and didn't like, all of a sudden, he's now loving cruises. Again, my youngest son says, so how do you manipulate people? No, it's influence and persuasion. That's what it is. So we can use our superpowers of curiosity and mindfulness and non-judgmental thinking. When I was first in health and safety, and even now I find it sometimes, I come across people and I'm like, what the heck? Oh my gosh, And I really have to step back and realize, no, let's take a look at the big picture, because why they're doing what they're doing is a part of their definition set. I have to understand that. Your keynote speaker this morning, she said that, didn't she? When she talked about the empathy of the person who was doing that horrible, horrible thing to her. She said she had to step back and realize that they were hurting too. And that's what drove them to that behavior. So as safety professionals, when we have to step back and look at senior leadership to frontline people, step back, be curious, mindful, non-judgmental, Be aware and pay attention on purpose, present moment, non-judgmental. Why does it exist this way? Why, when this person makes this choice, it makes them happier versus sadder? People will always go toward happiness. They will always go toward pleasure. They don't want to go toward pain. So why do we make safety painful? Let's make it joyous and happy and a pleasure to do. Human beings are very creative. They will do what they need to do to get the job done. I will get the cookie no matter what. And this child will grow up to be this guy saying, I will get it done no matter what. I want my cookie. Because they're winning. The job gets done. So we have to look at how we can help people with their challenges so that they win. If we win people over if we help them win. So we have to speak to their wants and needs. That means I need to know their definitions. Does this make sense so far? Okay. So communicate to people's definitions once you know them. Okay, so I got 3 workers that go to the Grand Canyon. They have a job to do. They know that it's hazardous, but there's certain things that they need to do. So 3 workers go to the Grand Canyon. They know big hole, fall down, get hurt. They even sent for the safety orientation DVD, and it said, big hole, fall down, get hurt. But they knew that they were only supposed to go so far or so close to the edge, never go across the barricade, no running, definitely no running with scissors. So they had the job hazard analysis. They even bought travel limiting devices so they could only get so close to the edge and yet do their work. Each one of them knew the hazard, the risk, the right control. They were duly diligent. Yet each one of them saw the Grand Canyon slightly different because of their definitions. Because I had a Saskatchewan minister, a Saskatchewan engineer, and a Saskatchewan farmer. The minister looked at the Grand Canyon and said, what a wonderful creation of God. And the engineer looked at the Grand Canyon and said, what a wonderful creation of science. You're shifting and moving and cracking. And the farmer looked at it and said, what a horrible place to lose a cow. Was one more right or wrong than the other? No. But if I'm talking to the minister, what am I saying? Hallelujah, amen. I'm talking to the rancher, I'm going, bad place to lose a sheep too, right? So I may be giving the same message, the basics of it, but it has to be just painted in a different way or message mapped in a certain way so that it meets their wants and their needs, that it catches their attention, so that when we look at the hazard, the risk, we know what to do, we can all be on the same page of the book. Right? So we have to look at, are we speaking the same language? Now, I don't have time to go into this in great detail today, but get some education on multicultural considerations. How many people have people in the workplace where English is a second language? Right? That, okay, they may speak English really well, but, and English is their first language, but they were born, raised, and grew up mostly in another country. Right? How you talk to people is different from different countries. How you relate to people, to whether they like you or not like you, or you offend them or you catch their attention, is just a little bit different. So if you know that you have people from other places of the world, get some cultural intelligence. That means know about their culture, have awareness of your own methodology, and then this is the 5 culture scales I use when I'm message mapping to groups that I know are from different cultures than my own. Are they on an equality or a hierarchy scale? Because if they are on a hierarchy scale and I tell them the right to refuse, you got the right to refuse. No, I don't. I was raised in a culture where it's a caste system, and if I'm not here, I don't say boo. So the right to refuse means nothing to them. Right? So now you have to talk it in their language so you can make it feel safe that they can say something. Right? Direct or indirect communicators, if they're indirect communicators, they don't like challenge. They'll say yes all the time even though they meant no. So you need to understand those kinds of concepts. So do some research in that. It'll help you influence people from other backgrounds. At the end of the day, whether we're from Canada or other cultures or whatever industry we're in, as human beings, we want to be valued, appreciated, and understood. And if people see that you're doing some effort along those lines, they'll pay more attention to what you say, versus that you just gloss over things or throw safety at them. Make people feel valued, appreciated, and understood. I tell you, there are days I wake up and I wish that I did this better. In my own work environment, in the companies that I worked in, even in my own family at times. Because if people felt more valued, more appreciated, more understood. We would have all gone forward together so much better. So far, so good? Cool. So how do I get people to do safety things I need them to do? My dad used to say to me, Eldine, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. This safety thing must kill you. And I realized after a period of time, my job is to make them thirsty and then make sure the water's there. I can't force them to drink the Kool-Aid, but I can feed them the salt and get them to think about it and create curiosity gaps that they come to me and ask for information. Or I make it their idea. They're more apt to do it than if I come up with it, right? We should be able to make people thirsty without having that accident. They should be able to look at it proactively. So how do we get people to say yes? Well, there's a lot of research on this in behavioral studies. I want to share some of it with you. Did you know that it was scientifically proven that people say yes to you more if you're good looking? Okay, so for some of you, that's not going to work. So, okay, let's get some. This is a great book, right? All the slides are made available, I believe, through the WorkComp Institute. There's a couple additional ones I added in here. You can email me and I'll send them to you. But this is a great book. It's an absolutely wonderful book. They have podcasts. Look it up. This, basically, I use this a whole lot. But it basically says that effective leaders do certain things, recognize certain things to make sure that people are influenced. And this is actually the check sheet that I now use when I'm planning new initiatives or I want to communicate something and I think that it might be a little bit more difficult. I try to use as many as I can, but I don't have to use them all. So I'm going to go through each one of these, right? Because basically, as we communicate in our workplace, we're trying to convince people to see the hazard, know that it's a hazard, and make sure that they're safe. So again, we shouldn't have to have an incident that happens before people can pay attention and we can convince them where to go. So knowing a little bit about human behavior, what are the things that motivate people? A lot of it's 7 key motivators. A lot of research that's out there says it's power, competency, autonomy, being able to do the job and to do it on my own, rewards, relatedness, meaning, and purpose. And even with some of those, like rewards, some people are motivated by public rewards, right? You stand in front of everyone, you get your 15-year no lost time jacket, woohoo! They want that. Another guy, he would rather not have that at all. He just wants a handshake and a pat on the back because he's more introverted. You need to know what your people kind of want, because if all of a sudden you're dragging a guy up on stage and saying, isn't he doing well for safety, you're actually probably tainting him when it comes to health and safety versus motivating him to do more. So you need to know your people and their definitions that are there, right? First, one that Robert Cialdini talks about is liking. If you can get people to like you, that they're more apt to listen to you. Do you listen more to people who you like or that you don't like? You listen more to people that you like. Even family members, right? You have some that you like more than others. You'll always believe the one. There's always that one around the table that you just don't believe him. Why? He could be totally right. He could be showing you on the phone and you still think it's fake news. Because you just don't like him as much as the others. But if it was the favorite one, right? They could even make it up and you'd be believing it, right? So become more likable. So how do you become more likable? Because when in the last, as a safety person, have you come on site and people go, hugs, I'm so excited to see you? Why aren't we that person? Probably because we haven't built that good relationship. We may have been coming down on them hard for things or talking to them not in their definition set. We haven't been feeding them and helping them deal with what they need and what they want, right? So what causes another person to like them? Similarity, right? So I've gone into places where if somebody thinks that I'm like them or I have a background that's similar, they're more apt to like me than not. Even as simple as how we dress can influence whether people like us or not. If I'm going to be working out in the shop, if I come out in this suit, when I'm going to go into the shop this afternoon to actually deal with a group of supervisors right after this, I'm going to be changing in a parking lot somewhere. Hopefully you won't find me on the news going, yeah, a strange woman changing. But if I come in this, they're going to look at me and go, really? They need to find similarities. And it can be as simple as we both like pizza, we both go hunting, we've both been to this country. Find similarities with individuals. That was that one guy, again, the Chihuahua Rosie. He thought it was so great because the supervisor has 2 Chihuahuas himself. So it was their instant connection. All of a sudden they like each other, they're not fighting about things anymore. Where before they were fighting about aspects. So find a connection with your people. Robert Cialdini talks about a study that they had done where they got a group of people together and said, you need to negotiate. Time is money though, don't build a relationship, just get right down to business. And they found that about 55% of the negotiations were a success. That means 45 were not. In another group, what they said was, build a relationship. Find something in common before you start to negotiate. All of a sudden, it's 90% success rate. Hey, Larry, how's the boys? Pretty good, pretty good. Our sons went to school together. It's often one of the first things that we'll even talk to each other about when we meet, right? Because we have a similarity. There's a connection. When you have a connection with people, you like people a little bit more. He may not really like me. I'm not too sure, but who knows? I'm hoping, right? Compliments. Give people compliments. How many times as safety people we come by and we just say how bad we're doing, what's wrong? Let's start praising the good things, looking at the good things. And it has to be genuine praise. It can't be fake stuff. Oh, don't you look good today? Right? You got to find something that's really great that's out there. These are my best friend. I should actually own, I should own stocks in this company. When I get on a plane anymore, the first thing I do when I get on a plane, and I travel a lot, is I go to the flight attendant and say, hey, can I get you to do me a favor? And they'll look at me going, you just got on the plane and you're asking for stuff already? Can you take these chocolates and share them with the crew? And all of a sudden they go, oh, thank you. Oh, are you a part of a flight crew? No, just appreciate what you do. I do safety, you do safety. They will talk to me every time they pass by. They will all thank me. I've gotten free drinks out of it. I've even gotten upgrades. And it's not because that's what I want. But my husband says, when I fly, if I hit that button, they'll come to me first. Because we've built a connection. It's a compliment. We've started the liking aspect. Give people what they want, recognition, feel valued, understood, and appreciated. And you've already built a part of a relationship. So have contact, engagement, cooperation with individuals that are there. Because the more you do that on a basis that's not just safety, but bigger, you will have them feel valued, appreciated, and understood. They did a study, power of the sticky note. Gotta love it. These sticky notes, they're great. Right? So they did a study with a survey, a wellness survey, sent them out to all the people. Right? So they said, if we send it out, just the survey, and say, please do the survey, that I had to write down the statistics, about 36% average on return. They started to then send surveys out with a cover letter saying, this is why we're doing it. We'd like you to participate. Thank you very much, Safety Department. They were getting 48% back. When they started to put a sticky note on it in personal handwriting saying, hey, Alex, could you do this for me? Really appreciate your feedback. It jumped up to 76%. The personal touch of feeling valued, appreciated. So as we send things out, could we do something like that? Actually, you can get sticky notes printed off. I shouldn't share this. But you can get them so that they say, thanks very much for looking into this, Eldine. And you don't even have to write them anymore. It's in your handwriting. Kind of tricky. When you got a lot out there, but it creates a sense of connection, of meaning, of identity. People are more apt to do something if they feel that. So far, okay? Can you see how this applies to safety? How we might be able to use it? Reciprocity. is what Robert talks about in his book that he wrote in Phoenix. He says that people feel obligated to pay you back once you've done something for them. So this is where it's important to find out their wants and needs. And if you can fulfill one of their wants and needs within their work environment, they're more apt to do something for you next time when it comes to health and safety. All right? They did these studies with at restaurants, right? That you will pay a bigger tip the bigger gift you get from the waiter. So if you get toothpicks, you know, if you get nothing, you don't often give a tip. If you get toothpicks, chocolates, candies, right, you'll often get bigger tips that are there. It's that reciprocity that's the old give and take. It's not really anything new, right? If I give somebody something, they're more likely to like me and they're more often to give it back. Have you done this at Christmas, right? You get new neighbors, they invite you for a Christmas party, you go over, then when you're gonna throw yours, you kind of go, I guess we should invite them, right? So we should be doing that with health and safety. Find out the definitions, the needs of individuals, work to fulfill them, so that when you go to ask them for something, they feel a little indebted. Right? People will do what you want when you give them something that they want. Again, not much of a secret. So the more we can find out what their needs and their wants are and we can work to fulfill them, we should be able to do that, right? On a personal level, as well as on a work organizational level. So you need to know their definitions, find out what their needs are, work to fulfill them, help them to be successful, because then they will help you to be successful. So that part of that's finding what's their challenges, right? If you could change one thing in your work environment right now, Bob, what would it be? And if I had the magic wand, what are some of the things that I could wave and make happen for you? There might be a couple things you can't absolutely do, you have no influence over, but there's a couple others that you're like, ooh, I could maybe do that. We almost become a little bit of a fixer, which we are anyways as safety people, fixers. Consistency drives influence and persuasion. Our words and our actions need to correspond. If people see us as consistent, then they're more likely to follow and to listen to us. They feel strong pressure, though, to feel consistent to what they say they're willing to do or what they say they believe in. So the more you can get people to talk about their definitions of safety, get them to commit to safety, then they're more apt to act on it versus not. We don't want people to do what I say and not what I do kind of aspect that's there, right? So this is where, again, the leadership charter was an excellent thing. People sign it. It's really hard for senior leadership to say, yeah, well, I know I signed it, and I was in the picture in the paper, but I really don't want to do it now. Then you can have conversations to link up to say, I can help you fulfill this vision that you signed by helping you do this, this, and this. They're more apt to say yes than to say no. Having workers have a why wall of safety, that this is my commitment to safety, then you can always have that within their conversation. Does that make sense? Social proof. Boy, is this a big thing today with the apps on the phones, right? Is that if somebody else likes it, I can go to a restaurant and say, this is the best restaurant ever. Tell my sons they need to come to this restaurant. You'll love it. They'll go, I looked on Yelp. Yelp didn't say it had good ratings. Yeah, but I've been feeding you for 35 years. I know what you like. You'll like it. No, Yelp said it's not good. What, you believe Yelp more than me? And so much so with the newer generation about social proof, but all of us, we will look toward behaviors of similar others for direction about our choices. And that's why canned laughter in the shows or in videos works so well. People will laugh more when there's canned laughter, even though all of us say we hate it. Because we will always imitate what other people are doing around us. So this is where testimonies are so powerful in our work environment. If you can have someone from the maintenance department talk about why safety is important to them and what they do to make it go forward, or the Spencer Beaches or the Curtis Webbers or the, right? They have huge impact because it's social proof that's there. People will look to the actions of other like people to determine their own. It's so much more, again, with millennials. So rather than relying on our own ability to persuade people, why aren't we using the informal leaders? How many of us know the informal leader? They're the one that we are at a safety meeting. They're not a supervisor. They're just one of the guys or gals. But when everybody laughs, they look at him to see if he's laughing. That if you say something about health and safety, they're looking for him to nod or to shake his head. Why aren't we using them? Because they're already leaders and persuaders to say some of the same messages that are there. So use social proof influence as much as you can. Because when people are uncertain, they'll rely even more so on what other people are doing or their past experiences than anything else. Make sense? Cool. Authority. Sometimes we need authority to sell things. A lot of us in our own workplaces, we are humble, and so we don't say, I know this information, or I am a bit of a subject matter expert on this topic. So, it's okay to toot our own horn once in a while. It's also okay to find other subject matters in the work environment to talk about specific topics within health and safety, especially if they're respected. Now, if everyone doesn't like them, then you probably don't want them talking about it, because they're not going to influence or persuade. But people are more easily influenced or persuaded by people they perceive to be legitimate authorities. So I got Oprah one day to come and help me. Like, not actually phone her up and come and help me, because I don't know her that well. Actually, I don't know her at all. But we were doing a new wellness program in one of the places that I do some work in. And there was a whole group of gals in the office who were not buying into it. They didn't want to participate. They didn't want to do any of the little fun things. They were just like, nope, you want to do wellness out in the shop for the guys, that's fine, but we are like, bite me. I heard a lot about sex and warm weather travel. Like, they were just adamant that they were not going to be involved in this. I heard over lunch one day, they were lining up for Oprah. Oh my gosh, they were so excited. She was coming to the city. They were going to get tickets. They were literally camping overnight. They were like putting all the funding to this one woman to get tickets. They came back from seeing Oprah and they're crying. Oh my God, it was the best. Oh, it was life-changing. So you know what I started to do? I started to buy Oprah magazines, the O magazine, and leave them around the office, highlight the wellness stuff. We'd start to do a wellness education, and who would come up first on the first slide? Oprah. Oprah says. Within about a month and a half, all of a sudden they're going, hey, what's this program? And hey, let's try this. And so I didn't use my authority, I used Oprah. Sometimes it's using the guy in the workplace that does the job the best, that everyone looks up to, and get him to send the message that you need him to send. Scarcity. Now, this is often a little harder to do in safety. Like, this is the big sale, Brick's selling out these sofas. There's only 2 for $99. Please come and get it, right? Because people are like, oh, what a great deal. I better get it while you can. And that's hard to do kind of with safety. But there's a kind of ways that we can twist some of the language. But people typically overvalue things that are only there for a limited period of time. So my sons love Cherry Coke, and when Cherry Coke was not available in Canada, I would pack this stuff up from the States, right? The customs would say, what are you bringing? What are you declaring? 5 cases of Cherry Coke, right? I learned to say cherry before, because when I'd say 5 cases of Coke, it never turned out well. So it had to be, got 5 cases of Cherry Coke. But once they started selling it up here, all of a sudden the kids don't want to drink it anymore. Now that they took it away again, now they're asking me to bring Cherry Coke. It's because it was scarce. It was something that was different. Right? So maybe it's the last chance to get this special PPE. I only got 5 Harley-Davidson safety glasses left. Be involved in this project. We only have this. Have your say now or forever hold your peace. Get involved. Better to say something and determine how it looks versus that it's going to be passed on to you and you get what you get. That might be how we sell those kinds of things. Kind of make sense? Cool. Use our mind-reading powers to assess change for safety. This is a sheet I use all the time from Posner and Kozner that's out there. We don't often assess if people are ready to change. We give them an initiative, and we say, this is good for you. You need to start doing it. And we don't know where they're at. If we know that people are at 0 tolerance for change, we have to talk to them different than if they are planning or preparing for change. So you need to assess where people are at. I'm no different. So I go to the doctor not too long ago, and because I've been having some medical issues, I'm getting a little older, and my blood pressure is a little high. And he says, it's because you're fluffy. Fluffy? Like, that's a medical diagnosis. Fluffy. He says, you should lose some weight, LD. And I said, do you know how I live? I'm on the road, in hotels, I'm eating fast food. I try to do the best I can, but blah, 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 and I'm not that bad. And he's like, no, you're pretty well obese. And I'm like, what? Fluffy. I like fluffy better. So I go home, and to my husband, I said, the doctor called me fluffy. Because when I left the doctor's office, did I have any intent to go on a diet or to lose weight? Zero intent. You talk to me different. Go home to my husband. Hey, the doctor says I should lose weight. He called me fluffy. He goes, it's okay. I like you a little more cherub-like. Cherub-like? Bite me. Go sleep on the couch with the dog. I am very happy the way I am. I'm okay, right? And so I have zero intent to change. You can tell me, right? And I come from the medical profession, right? That's what I was way back when, was in the medical profession. I know all about being healthy and eating right, but I have no intent to change. So how you talk to me is really different. When did I decide to change? When I got extreme muffin top in my pants, like driving from Saskatoon to Regina. You know what that is, right? Where I had to unbuckle my pants. It hurt so bad. My favorite pair of jeans. I got out of the car that day and said, well, maybe I should lose a couple pounds. But I'm looking for every easy way to do it. So could that cool sculpting, could they do that? Isn't there a pill I can take, an injection every day? Am I looking at how I really need to do it? No. Right? Now I stay in hotels that have gyms. Not that I actually go there, but it's baby steps, right? Baby steps. Just baby steps. Right? But how you talk to people, how you sell your product is different at each stage. And how many of our work environments, when we're introducing an initiative, is all at the same stage? Maintenance wants to do it, but operation doesn't. But yet we draw them all in the same big room and talk to them in the same way. Maybe we should start taking them in groups and talking them. So the chart that I've included in the handout, in the package, gives you a little bit of some to-dos and not to-dos at each stage. Because otherwise that's a whole workshop in itself. Good idea? Cool. Superpower of why. When we introduce a topic, often people go, what? They give us that, are you serious? I'm going to have to do this now kind of look. And then they're looking, how's this going to affect my life? I don't know if I want to do this or not. If we can start with why, we will often get more traction than not. Most of the time as safety professionals, we are so busy telling them what to do and how to do it. If we have time, we'll tell them why. Turn it around. Start with why first, and then tell them how and what to do. A Harvard study had people line up at a photocopier and ask to budge in at the lineup. If they just said, can I budge in because I need to get mine done sooner, people would be like, no. But if people said, I need to have these 3 done soon because I have a class in 5 minutes, go ahead. As soon as we started with a why, people are more apt to do an action. So start with why. Start with our whys. Preparation HR messages, right? Tell people why, hit an emotional string, and then give them some activity or actions that they're there. So by telling a story, that helps that. Think of your favorite movie. Why has that changed your life, or what can you apply about it? Is that you need to embrace kind of the darkness that's there. Is that how I'm over? Okay, darn it. Okay, lead through our actions. Talk the talk and walk the walk, right? So we want to make sure that what we do at work and at play match up. That when we see things that are going wrong, that we have a conversation or talk to people about it, right? Maybe not talk to them, but talk to the rest of the people in the car. Connect our messages back to definitions, show integrity, authority, and passion to help people make the right choices. And then build that system for them to be there for each other. Don't step on it, it makes you cry. Don't assume that everybody knows the hazards. Because their definition set may not include the right procedures or processes. They do not know how to apply what they need to apply. Or you have it written down somewhere, but they just don't know where it needs to go. Reserved for green vehicles. Right? Okay. So these are some of the pieces of the puzzle that I think that if we implement, we can influence and persuade people a little bit more to do the safety aspects that we need to do to make sure that they go home at the end of the day. And I want to thank you for continuing to be the difference in people's lives out there, because what you choose to do or not to do, what you say and what you don't say, and how you say it and how you sell it, will make sure that moms and dads, sons and daughters go home at the end of the day. Thank you so much for your attention today.